husband's wild friend tried to mess up our relationship. He pretended to apologize, became my friend, and then made fake messages from his ex to split us up. Hey everyone, I need some advice. I'm a 26-year-old woman, and I'm feeling really frustrated with this situation involving one of my husband's friends, Kyla, who's also 27. My husband thinks I might be blowing this out of proportion, but I need some cool-headed opinions to figure out if I'm just being crazy or if this is genuinely crossing the line. So, my husband has this tight-knit group of 8 friends from his college days, and Kyla is one of them. When we first started dating, he introduced me to the whole crew, and they were all super friendly. I'm an introvert, and so is my husband. Social gatherings tend to drain me, so I'd often ask him to spend time alone with me instead. His friends, especially Kyla, would always make comments about how he hangs out with them less since we started dating. Kyla always gave off this weird vibe. She'd be super nice to me when my husband was around, but the moment he left the room, it was like I didn't exist. My husband and I both hate being touched by others because we're both neurodivergent, but Kyla would always tease him by trying to hug him or mess with his hair. It never seemed flirty, just annoying, like she had no sense of personal boundaries. We got married 2 years ago, and everything has been great between us. Last week, we celebrated our second wedding anniversary and invited a bunch of friends over. After most of the guests left, a few friends stayed behind, and we were all just drinking and chatting. One of his friends, Jen, got a bit tipsy and started complimenting me on how great our house is and how well I take care of my husband. Then she mentioned how much he had improved since getting married. Everyone laughed about how messy he used to be when he was single. Suddenly, Jen pointed at Kyla and said, "You better pay up because you bet their marriage wouldn't last 2 years." The room went silent, and everyone quickly changed the subject. I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I let it go for the moment, but it kept nagging at me. After everyone left, I asked my husband about it. He noticed Jen's comment too and was ready to explain. Apparently, when we got engaged, Kyla got really upset. He had proposed to me on a surprise trip to Puerto Rico, and we posted our engagement photos on Instagram while we were there. It was a big shock to everyone because we had only been dating for a year. When he got back and told his friends, everyone congratulated us except for Kyla. She went on a rant, calling him a fool for proposing so quickly, and even implied that I was a gold digger, which is ridiculous, because my family is wealthy too. She even bet that our marriage wouldn't last 2 years. I was furious. I felt like my husband should have told me about this earlier. I asked if he had ever dated Kyla or if there was any history between them, and he assured me that he hadn't. He said Kyla had asked him out a few times in college, but he always turned her down because he just didn't have any romantic feelings for her. My husband does have a type, and Kyla is the complete opposite of that. I'm really mad at Kyla for talking trash about me and betting against our marriage, especially after we got engaged. I told my husband that I don't want Kyla at our house anymore and that he should minimize contact with her. He thinks I'm overreacting because this happened years ago and says Kyla has been supportive in other ways, like helping with our wedding. He thinks she's just blunt and doesn't mean anything by it. He's worried this will mess up the dynamics in his friend group. Am I overreacting for wanting him to block her and stop inviting her over? Betting against our marriage and bad-mouthing me feels like a huge betrayal. I'm also upset that my husband never told me about Kyla asking him out. Am I just being crazy and overreactive? How would you react in this situation? I don't want to distance my husband from his friends, but I also don't want to see Kyla's face again. To give some more context, Kyla's behavior hasn't changed at all since our wedding. She still acts fake nice when my husband is around, and barely acknowledges me when he's not. When I told my husband about this, he just said she doesn't know me well and to ignore her. But as a woman, you just know when someone doesn't like you, even if they don't say it out loud. It's hard to explain that it's more of a feeling than something specific she's done. So, it looks like she's got eyes for your husband, huh? Given the friend group dynamics, it might be pretty tough for him to just block her outright. And the last thing you want is to turn all his friends against you. Personally, I don't think blocking her is the way to go. Instead, you should sit him down and have a serious talk. Tell him how concerned you are about her saying things like that, touching him too often, and even betting against your marriage behind your back. That kind of stuff needs to be shut down, and he really needs to be on your side here. Honestly, if it were me, I'd probably get a bit tipsy and jokingly confront Kyla when we're alone. Something like, "Wow, Kyla, you must be super jealous that I ended up with him instead of you." And then just laugh it off. But hey, that's just me being petty, lol. If her crossing boundaries is messing with the group dynamic, then that's on her, not you. I wouldn't stop going to events she's at, but I definitely wouldn't invite her to my place or to any events I'm hosting. So, updating you on the whole Kyla situation from about 6 months ago. Remember when she bet our marriage wouldn't last more than 2 years? That really pissed me off, so I asked my husband to stop talking to her because she totally disrespected our marriage. After I posted about it, my husband was trying to convince me that Kyla was just joking and that it happened a long time ago. The next day, Kyla messaged me apologizing for her comments and for not making more of an effort to connect with me. I accepted her apology and started warming up to her. She even began inviting me to brunches and girls' nights out, and I felt more included in their friend group. One day at brunch, I asked Kyla why she thought our marriage wouldn't work out. She explained that my husband had broken up with his long-term ex, Joanna, just 2 months before we started dating. I knew that part, but Kyla added that my husband was really heartbroken and had sworn off dating. When we hit it off quickly, she thought I was just a rebound. She was worried that he was making a rash decision, especially considering his family's wealth and the short amount of time we'd known each other. She didn't know my family was also well off, so she assumed I was taking advantage of his vulnerable state. She apologized for assuming the worst and acknowledged that she was wrong, having seen how happy we are together over the years. We became good friends after that and started hanging out more often. Then, about 2 months ago, my husband went to Seattle for a conference for 3 nights. After he got back, I received a message on Instagram from Joanna, his ex, claiming that my husband had contacted her a few months ago and that they had met up in Seattle. She even offered to provide more proof if I wanted. I checked my husband's Instagram, but he seemed to have blocked her. I made the mistake of mentioning it to Kyla, as she had always been honest with me about Joanna. Kyla went into detective mode and found that Joanna was still her friend on Instagram since they all went to college together. The message sent to me was from a different profile with no followers, but we saw that Joanna had indeed attended the same conference in Seattle. Kyla suggested that I should ask Joanna for more proof and also confront my husband before jumping to conclusions. When I asked my husband if he met Joanna, he admitted that he had, but it was just a quick chat in the expo hall. He didn't mention it to me because he didn't think it was a big deal. I told him that Kyla had noticed Joanna's pictures at the conference, so I thought he might have seen her. I messaged Joanna again for more proof, and she sent me logs of their messages where my husband was actively flirting with her. The screenshots seemed legit, but I couldn't find any of those messages on my husband's Instagram. Confused, I talked to Kyla again, unsure of what to believe. Joanna insisted that my husband had invited her to his room at night and that they had hooked up, though she had no photos because he had insisted they take none. I quickly realized it was all fake and told Joanna to back off. She kept insisting she was telling the truth and that she had spent all 3 nights in his room. I informed her that my husband and I play the video game Sea of Thieves for a few hours each night when he's away, so unless she was watching us play the whole time, she was lying. I also told my husband about the whole ordeal. He said I should have come to him sooner and assured me that he had gone no contact with Joanna since their breakup. He even offered to let me check his phone, but I didn't need to. Joanna probably ran into him and decided to mess with our lives by making up stories. That weekend, when all our friends got together, my husband and I explained everything about Joanna's fake messages. Kyla backed us up, recalling how Joanna had told her the story. Kyla accidentally mentioned that if we weren't such nerds playing video games every night, Joanna might have had a convincing story. Funny thing is, I never told Kyla about the video games. I just told her Joanna was full of it, so I blocked her. It wasn't until I got home that I finally connected the dots. I shared the whole thing with my husband, and he decided to confront Kyla about it. Of course, she denied everything and claimed that I had told her about the video game stuff over a phone call. Honestly, I don't remember doing that at all. Since then, my husband and I decided it's best to keep our distance from Kyla. She's called me multiple times wanting to meet up, but I always come up with excuses that I'm busy. I still have no idea why she did what she did, but at this point, I really don't care to find out. We've decided to only see her during social gatherings and avoid hanging out with her one-on-one as much as we can. I feel pretty stupid for letting her play me like a fool. And looking back, it was suspicious how she brought up Joanna at the same time Joanna claimed to have an affair with my husband. I don't know what Kyla's intentions were, but I'm mad enough that I'm going to avoid her completely. I wish I had some solid proof that it was Kyla messaging me so I could call her out. I also feel bad for doubting my husband, but I'm relieved that he and I are on the same page now. Anyway, moving on to the next story. Story 2. I caught my fiancée cheating with her ex at her bachelorette party and spilled everything at our rehearsal dinner. So here's the backstory. I'm a 26-year-old guy and met my fiance, who's also 26, at a work convention 3 years ago. We hit it off right away and ended up hooking up that very night. We exchanged numbers and kept in touch, even though we had to part ways shortly after. What started as a long-distance fling turned into a committed, monogamous relationship. Eventually, I decided to move to her city to be with her, especially since she was taking care of her sick grandparent at the time. It just seemed like the right thing to do. After living together for about 6 months, I realized I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I bought a ring and proposed not even a week later. She was over the moon and started planning the wedding with her best friend and sister. Everything felt perfect between us, and I didn't have any reason to suspect her of anything. Being away from my friends and family was tough, though. I had a close-knit group back home, so I buried myself in work to cope with the loneliness. Months went by, and our wedding date was fast approaching. My fiancé had everything planned out, and things were running smoothly, right up to the bachelor and bachelorette parties. I found a weekend that worked for my brother and my close friends, and we rented an Airbnb cabin by the lake for my bachelor party. We spent the weekend drinking beer and fishing. Honestly, I didn't have any desire to hit up clubs or hire dancers. I just wanted to chill with my friends. My fiancé, on the other hand, had always dreamed of a wild bachelorette party in Vegas, complete with gambling, shows, male strip clubs, the whole shebang. I trusted her completely, so I didn't think anything would go wrong. We went our separate ways for the weekend, and our friends made sure we had zero contact with each other, insisting that's how it should be. When the weekend was over, we both got home and exchanged stories about our respective parties. I told her that my weekend was pretty low-key and relaxing. She joked that I must be hiding something because she couldn't believe there were no dancers at my bachelor party. Her teasing soon turned accusatory, as she thought it was weird for a guy to have a bachelor party without any form of wild entertainment. She shared that she had a blast with her girls, drinking all weekend and bidding farewell to her single life. A few days later, while working from home, I heard her laptop dinging continuously. She was at her grandma's place helping out, so I figured she must have left it open by mistake. Normally, I'm not nosy, but the constant notifications made me worry. I thought maybe she was trying to get my attention because something happened and she couldn't reach me. So I took a quick peek and realized it was her bachelorette party group chat blowing up with pictures and videos from the weekend. Initially, I laughed at myself for being paranoid, but as I scrolled through the photos, something caught my eye. There was her ex-boyfriend in several pictures. She had always been open about past relationships, so I recognized him right away. They had dated for years, even longer than we had been together. I sometimes wondered if she still harbored feelings for him, but she always assured me they were just friends and that he had a new girlfriend. He was even invited to our wedding, but in these pictures, they were way too close for comfort. He had his hand on her lower back, and they were dancing together, looking pretty intimate. Then I found a video that one of the girls had taken. In the background, I saw my fiancé climbing onto the couch, where her ex was sitting and straddling him. The other girls were cheering them on as they kissed passionately. The video ended with them walking away hand in hand, and I felt sick to my stomach. I'd never felt so heartbroken in my life. I had always been insecure about her ex, and now my worst fears were confirmed. So they went off together, and I was pretty sure they were heading to a bedroom. I couldn't just sit with that gut feeling, so I dug through their messages and bam, there it was. More proof that they indeed hooked up. And if that wasn't bad enough, I found out they got it on without any protection. How did I find that out, you ask? Well, in one of their chat exchanges after their wild night, he freaking told her he had a venereal disease and that she should get tested. Can you believe that? I was super relieved that she and I had promised each other not to sleep together until our wedding night. The last time we had been intimate was a week before the bachelor and bachelorette parties. So if she had picked up anything from him, thankfully, I was in the clear. But man, I was raging inside, hurt beyond words, and just wanted to make her feel some of that pain too. The wedding, yeah, that was definitely off, but she didn't know that yet. I took screenshots of all the incriminating messages and saved the videos, sending them to myself to make sure I had solid evidence. The rehearsal dinner for our wedding was just around the corner, and she and I had planned to make little speeches to thank everyone for their support and give them small gift bags as tokens of appreciation. I had a different plan. I printed out around 50 copies of the text messages and included some pictures of my fiancé kissing her ex at the bachelorette party. When the rehearsal dinner day arrived, I discreetly slipped these into the gift bags. My fiancé went first, giving her speech about how much she loved me and couldn't imagine life without me. When it was my turn, I casually mentioned that I had a surprise for everyone in the bags and invited them to take a look. To my pleasant surprise, her ex showed up with his girlfriend. The smile on my fiance's face disappeared fast when she saw what everyone was pulling out of their bags. Her ex's girlfriend flipped out, dumped water on him, and broke up with him on the spot, screaming about how irresponsible he was and how he could have given her something nasty. Honestly, it made me wonder if this wasn't the first time he had been unfaithful to her. After she stormed out, I launched into my speech. I said how grateful I was to discover my fiancé's true colors before we tied the knot. I then called off the wedding, told everyone to return their gifts or keep them if they wanted, and walked out. My now ex-fiancé chased after me, desperate to explain. She even tried to lie and claim they hadn't slept together, but come on. His messages straight up said he might have given her an STD. I didn't get how she thought she'd get away with that lie. I went back to our apartment, packed up my few belongings, booked a flight home, and stayed with my brother for a few weeks until I found a place of my own. Now, she's completely out of my life, and good riddance. I don't ever want anything to do with her again.